All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode 420 for the week of Sunday, January 18th. In the pre-show, Tao was not wearing a hat, and now Tao is wearing a hat with his Chicago Bears. Tao, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I was this close to calling in sick tonight. But no, I said no. I'm going to keep going with the podcast.
When you have to mute yourself to scream at the TV, we understand. And if you want to, break out in some Bear Down Bears song after the next score, it's perfectly fine as well. So
yes, I was going to warn you, so I might be muting a lot, possibly tonight.
That's good. It's a tight game, all tied up at halftime. So, all right. And joining us, as always, running the boards over there is Game Logic. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I'm appreciating that you got your Madden background when Tao is ready to. Yep. So that's good. There's a trial on Madden this week on Switch 2. So, which was interesting as well. But that is not what we're here to talk about. We've got, as we always do, we talk about some new games or some games that are new to us or some big games that we've spent some significant time with over the course of the last week. Then we'll dive into the headlines of the week and talk about some news that is meaningful or we deem meaningful. And then wrap it up with our third segment, which is a little bit of all the other things that we've been playing and any other discussions that come our way. If you're joining us in chat, as always, thank you. And feel free to join in the comments and the commentary. Glad to have you in the conversation, asking questions, correcting us, adding your own analysis into it as well. So thank you, everybody, week after week. We appreciate that engagement. All right. So let's get started with our main course. Our main stories for the week. I've got two new games here. Both were released this week. Both are relatively small games. Thanks, Real Nate. Glad to have you here. Both games kind of came on my radar. The first one came on my radar early in the month as I was kind of skimming through some of the releases. And then the second one popped up on my radar because I had played the demo of it at one point in time and didn't realize it was coming out already. So the first game is Super Woden Rally Edge. So I don't have any PC footage tonight. I definitely want to get some for tomorrow or for next week. I played a lot of this on the Steam Deck and it plays really well in the Steam Deck. Also runs great on a PC. This is the follow-up. There is a Super Woden GP, which came out in 21. Super Woden GP2, which came out in 23. It's by a solo developer who goes by Vajuda, Victor Justo de Cruz out of Spain. And it is kind of a top-down. So the first two games, the Woden GPs play kind of as an isometric, and this one plays in pretty much a top-down kind of traditional arcade rally, and it bills itself as an arcade rally game. It is more rally than arcade. You definitely, you've got a handbrake, but it is. When I started, dove into the arcade mode just to get a sense of it. It's pretty unforgiving. I was not able to make the second checkpoint after multiple tries. But then in the GP mode, so it's the way it works is you purchase a vehicle, and as you go through your circuits or as you go through events, you're earning credits, which then you can upgrade your vehicle from anything from tires and transmission and engine and shocks and computer chips and acceleration and all kinds of different parts there. To upgrade, you've got multiple upgrades for each different vehicle. There are probably, I think there's about 6 or 7 different vehicle makers. representing different countries. They all have fictional names, but they are done in such a way that the fictional names are a play on some of your, major car manufacturers. And each car has a rating, a letter grade. You start with letter E and move your way up to A and S. So each, depending on your vehicle, like in the lower E vehicles, you only have kind of 2 paths of upgrades. And then as you play some more, as you get further up, your other vehicles have more and more upgrades. So we've got some footage here. This game is fair and not super forgiving, but incredibly fun. I'm loving it. I've been playing the rally, the kind of career mode, and the first time through with my car without any upgrades, I placed 4th overall in just the first series. And in order to go on to the next series, you need at least 2 stars, which means you have to at least get 2nd place. And being able to upgrade after the first kind of first 2 races, I could go back and play, and went from getting 7th and then 4th place to getting 4th place and 2nd place, and then upgrading some more. I could go back and get a final 1st place to get all 3 stars. And as you go through, you need stars to then unlock additional circuits, and you can go back through them as many times as you need to pull up and earn credit. And so it is, it controls really well. There's a sense of speed. There's also, you're sliding a little bit, so the traction and friction on the course feels pretty good. It has the over the top view has kind of an arcade feel to it, but it is definitely not a hold the gas the entire time and drift around a corner. There is definitely some nuance into its racing. So it also has local multiplayer. You've got online leaderboards. There are kind of weekly or seasonal events. The current events are 3 different tracks with a set vehicle and kind of a time trial mode that are posted to an online leaderboard. Those rotate through. It looks like the first week is those 3 tracks, and it'll reset after the first week. So it's also on sale for, I bought it for like $9.09 or something like that. It's a $10 game basically, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. It is, again, a pretty amazing effort from a solo developer for the depth of it, and just a lot of fun. I definitely thought of you, Game Logic, as I was picking this up this week. Again, not a super sim, but a fun kind of accessible rally game.
Yeah, I'm.
Ooh, deep voice there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like you move the pitch dial on this thing like a millimeter, and it like flips out. And so, anyway, yeah, I'm opening up Steam to wishlist it right now.
Nice. Yeah, I think you do enjoy it. Ghost Skiller, glad to have you here.
The critical thing for me was I was looking up while you were debriefing it, and I checked to see if it had wheel and pedal support, and it does.
Oh, it does. Wow. Nice.
That was the big thing for me. It's kind of super interesting. It looks a lot like Art of Rally. And
yeah, a little bit with the cell shaded aspect and the perspective.
Yeah, with the perspective especially. And so it's kind of weird if you're a Rally fan, because it feels like it sits in between kind of Art of Rally and then something like WRC. So not EA Sports WRC. Codemasters is one of my top 5 favorite series of all time. That's the title they've released that I just choose to act like that doesn't really exist. So when I say WRC, I'm talking about the Kyloton or KT Racing version. So yeah, but this looks super interesting. Now, is it all? It's all time trial basically, which is what WRC Rally really is. It's not, you're not.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it's time trial, and as you go through, you'll hit certain checkpoints in a race, which will tell you how many seconds ahead or behind you are within the rest of the field. As you're racing, you've got it tells you what the time needed for gold, silver, and bronze is, and so you've kind of got that as your checkpoint, but it's very much a individual kind of race against the clock aspect. So it's one of those where knowing the tracks make a huge difference. As you're seeing on the screen, it does give you some heads up in terms of the tightness of a curve or the upcoming curves, and so you can drive accordingly. But definitely, as I was making my way, the third time through a track, having a good sense of where those corners are, where the tight one is, where I can kind of pick a good racing lane and find that line certainly makes a difference. And so, yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't see the only place I've seen where it's multiple people, but even when you are playing like local multiplayer, it is one car on the track itself, and so you're playing against other people, but not necessarily you're not running in or bumping other cars as you're going through.
So, yeah, you're just playing for time. Does it have the voice navigator, or is it just
Like
because the Simcade? It's just
in terms of it says something like upcoming hard turn, upcoming medium turn,
yeah,
upcoming. Yep.
In real rally racing, which is then the Dirt series, right? And then WRC is modeled after. There's a navigator in the car with you. There's a computer AI navigator, right? Who's calling out, because that's what they have in the actual sport. They're two-person teams with a driver and a navigator. The navigator is calling out in a certain advance of the turn, and there's a whole like turn scale system, right? Where there's a that refers to like the sharpness of the turn.
The sharpness of the turn. Yeah.
So 5 and 6s tend to be, almost straight ways with like very small bends in them, right? And then, you need to understand that when somebody's calling out a 2, right, that's practically a 90-degree turn right to the left, and things like that. So,
yeah. So this is calling out a hard, medium, and light turn.
Okay. So it's a little simplified then. Yeah. But still kind of the
same concept, not necessarily as granular in terms of numeric or scale. Yep. So, all right, my next game is any other thoughts there, Game Logic?
No. I'll probably definitely pick it up, but yeah.
All right. Henry Heck, thanks for joining us as well. My next game is Big Hops. So Big Hops is out on PC, Switch, and PlayStation 5. So Big Hops is a 3D platformer. You play a frog. I played the demo on PC. It plays great on Steam Deck. Coming in, the demo had a frame counter running at about 90. So it's really smooth. Playing it on Switch 2, looking at some of the reviews, the Switch specific reviews, there are some crashes still, so some stability pieces, but I haven't encountered that. I'm only a couple worlds in. You are a little frog that is navigating through. It is very much a kind of 3D Mario-like game, but you also have climbing stamina similar to Breath of the Wild. You can collect bugs throughout the world, and those bugs, you can analyze them and add them to your collection, or if you eat them, they can give you little boosts, like you can get additional stamina if you eat a bug before you try to climb. You can add on, additional quarter or more to your stamina meter. But you've got your tongue works as like a grappling hook as you are going through certain spots. So you've got a standard jump, a roll and a jump, kind of like Donkey Kong or Jak and Daxter. You've got a dive, so you can jump and then dive in the air like Mario 64 to get a little more distance. And then you have all kinds of environmental things that you pick up and can manipulate the environment. And so in addition to using your tongue as a grappling hook or to flick a switch or to pull a trigger, a lever. You can pick up mushrooms and throw them at places, and mushrooms become jump pads. Or you can pick up acorns, and acorns they grow little shoots of trees that you can then climb on. And so it opens up pretty quickly. It throws you in kind of an intro level in a forest, and it introduces you to a lot of these concepts. And then it throws you into a Mario Galaxy like level where gravity kind of switches on you. And then you're into a series of, it looks like about 5 different worlds that all have, kind of different themes. The first main world is a desert world, and you've got other types of things that you can throw. Like there's like an ink blotch, which allows you to grab onto and do like an additional jump off of. So what it ends up being is more than just a traditional kind of 3D platformer, because you need these environmental items to be able to navigate or circumvent certain areas in the world. It's pretty open-ended. Like there are definitely, you need certain things to get there, but it isn't a one size fits all in terms of how you do it. Like where you throw your vines to jump on, or you can, another item is one that grows kind of ropes between two ledges, so you can kind of walk across them like a tightrope style. And so it gives you a number of different tools and allows you to kind of choose how you're navigating that as you're going through. It's a really fun 3D platformer, tight controls, very kind of cartoony in its art style, but it is one where I played it, really started to enjoy it, and then ended up handing it off to both my kids to play, and they are 3D platformer fans as well, and both really enjoyed it and appreciate kind of the speed of the movement, but also the variety in items. So Big Hops it was kickstarted about 6 years ago. It is, the lead developer there is Chris Wade from Luckshot Games, and Luckshot Games is about 10 people. So again, a relatively small team putting together a pretty tight 3D platformer. So it's reviewed pretty well. It hasn't had a ton of reviews. The Steam reviews, I think, are only in maybe 200 or so at this point. But it is pulling in 7 and 8s. So it does a lot with the little bit that it is, right? It's not a super, one of the things they talked about in one of their developer interviews or kind of, videos for it, is that they started off making it a really wide open space, and then over time tightened it up to make it more compact but more dense, that there's more things going on in a shorter period of time, shorter space. So yeah, if you enjoy 3D platformers, it's kind of a fun surprise at a $20 game. So,
and it looks like this design to me is a little Super Mario Odyssey, like, just in terms of like the levels are big kind of 3D obstacle courses, right?
Yes, yeah. This is not a tight linear type of space. This is a kind of big open 3D area for you to figure out how you're going to navigate your way through, get to the next collectible that you're trying to get to the next level. All right. Well, let's move on from. Go ahead, Tao.
Sorry, quick question. I had a question. Sorry, I was trying to stop my video here because I was looking at the video for it. Actually, before the game, I just kind of put the other one up. So just watching the video, the other video I was watching, just some gameplay. So it looks like there's like the stamina comes into effect for certain surfaces, but not everything. Like he was climbing up it looks like I think you mentioned this where he like threw down an acorn or something and then like put up plant.
Little
Like
stem.
you
Yeah.
can
So
climb.
those you can
Yeah.
climb without any stamina. It's the kind of sheer faced walls where you end up with stamina. You
Okay.
can do a little bit of wall running, but in 3D platformer kind of norms, you start to lose your trajectory. You decrease your height as you run further. So it really is. If you don't have one of those items, then you only have certain stamina to kind of climb to the next space.
And then it looks like it's more just like the area is just more puzzle based, trying to get out of it more than, and because I didn't see any battling or anything like combat at all.
There's a
I don't know if you see
few
anything.
enemies, but not a lot. More of it is kind of puzzle 3D platforming. You have your tongue, which can hit stuff. You can throw things. I've picked up rocks to throw, but sometimes you're using those rocks to throw at enemies, or you're using them to throw at like a switch farther away to hit. So much of it's very little combat. Much of it is more kind of puzzle platforming.
Nice.
All right. Solotech, thanks for joining us as well. I think I'm going to guess this next one is Tau. There's not a person next to it, but it is free-to-play Dragon Ball MOBA, which came out in September of 25. I think it's on mobile, but it's also on PC. Is that correct?
Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot to put that.
That's okay.
Yes.
I was just guessing it was you. So, as someone who has, over the holiday break, been back into free to play a little bit with Marvel Snap and have finally deleted it. So I've played other free to play MOBAs. You've got the Pokemon Unite, which is kind of 4v4 here as well. What, besides the property, what brought you into this, and how's the gameplay?
Basically, the property brought me into this, and at a friend's request, actually, too. He suggested it because we grew up pretty much together and watching Dragon Ball Z, anime and stuff. So, we've been all into the other fighting game, all the Budokai and Tenkaichi or something like that. I don't know. There's this one with Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra. So just. They always think of words here for their titles, but basically what that is, actually, I was looking it up before the show, is the Gekishin is like a violent earthquake or violent shaking, and Squadra is just group. Obviously, that's kind of makes sense. So that makes sense here because you can see like all these attacks are just like fill up the screen and just out of control and just wacky. But so I've jumped in there. I have no idea what I'm doing in this game because it's very confusing because I'm not like a MOBA guy. I played Unite too, and then before that, like I've never really before Unite. I don't think I've ever really played Pokemon Unite. I don't think I ever played MOBAs before, not that I can remember. I always saw them and I was like, it looks interesting, but I just never got into it. But last few years, I've been dipping my toes. So usually because of an IP, which obviously here is Dragon Ball. But yeah, I just played a little bit Friday and then, or actually Thursday night, and then a little bit more last night we played. And I was just getting wrecked pretty much for the most part. We're just doing quick battles. You can do ranked too. My friend's actually been doing ranked. He's been doing pretty well, but we were getting pretty wrecked on the quick matches, the quick battles. But it's 4-on-4. You get a team. You can pick from a pretty good variety of different characters, even on the onset, and then there's DLC and stuff that you can pay for in-game money, and I think you can unlock stuff too, just as you play, as you level up, as you collect the different in-game money, and get different characters and skins and all this other customization stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm playing on controller because he actually suggested that, which I was kind of surprised because he's Mr. PC keyboard mouse, but he's like, yeah, it's super easy. It's more easy with a controller. So I've been doing that. I've been using my Xbox controller, and it was because at first I was playing with keyboard and mouse, and it's just kind of hard to some certain attacks you can kind of hold down and it shows that little kind of bar that's kind of sticking out of your character, and you can like move it around. And doing it with the PC, it's just like it just seemed kind of sensitive and a little bit harder to control. So controller with the sticks, it was way easier. So I've been doing that. I think I was kind of getting it, after the last few battles that we had done before we got off. There's kind of NPC enemies, and I don't know if it's like this on
Yeah, it looks like
all
you've got
MOBAs.
ads there to kind of farm
Yeah.
to get other, to earn your credits or XP to then level up. Are you leveling up as you go through the match? Is it like a lot of times it's kind of predetermined, early MOBAs or full on MOBAs like League, you're choosing different skills. Is this kind of a predetermined one that you hit it and it goes to the next skill type of thing?
Yeah, so you pick your skills even before you start the matches, and then you just as you level up, you can unlock them. So I think you have you can unlock one right away. Obviously, you just choose one. You kind of see in the middle, the bottom of the screen there are your abilities. So as you level up, then you can start unlocking everything. And I didn't realize that at first. Like I was just playing. He was trying to explain it to me too as we're going. And that's a little bit hard maybe in a game like this, trying to figure out everything. But yeah, so and I don't remember in Unite did they have like NPC characters that you can do that like farm XP? It's been a while since I played that.
Since I played Unite. Yeah, I mean I've played other
Yeah.
MOBAs where they definitely have. I mean it's part of the genre because you need that XP. And sometimes they're easy ads. Oftentimes you'll get a kind of a boss in there, or some more difficult enemies that will give you some boosts, things like that. So a question for you, Tao, and maybe for Henry Heck as well, since he's played it as well. And thanks, Henry, in terms of, yes, Unite has ads as well.
Okay.
Is it in the monetization aspect of it? Is it something where, is there gacha mechanics that you're getting different characters, or are is that in-game currency that you're getting shards of a character to get 6 or 10 of them in order to unlock a character? How do they gate some of that?
Yeah. On the onset, he actually showed me where you kind of something he didn't realize himself when he first started. They give you a set amount of the in-game currency, and then using that, you can go through and actually kind of level up your guy, and then you get these little capsules that you can, Dragon Ball Z, so they're capsules. That you can go and use to unlock everything. So on the onset, it was like, oh yeah, I got all these capsules. But now after I've used all those and I unlocked like a couple of characters, he was telling me to just like power up a character I wanted to at first. It seems they kind of just like drip feed you those capsules so you can go in there later on and pick stuff. Otherwise, obviously you can just go in there and pay real money to get those capsules to use for whatever characters you want. So yeah, it's just like Marvel Rivals now. It's just there's so much on the screen in this game. Like when you're just on the menu screen, it's like, oh my god. And I'm playing on PC right now. Yeah, it's PC, it's mobile. It's actually on Switch also, and then PS4 and 5. So I was just looking at the website. Yeah. So
yeah, Henry Heck said he played it on PS5. So
yeah. So
and
I think I'm actually
kind of traditional classes that you've got a DPS class, you've got a support class, things like that your different characters slot into those. Okay.
Yeah, you choose that right before the match too. I've just been doing DPS right now with Piccolo, kind of green alien guy. If you don't know Dragon Ball, that's the only character I've tried so far. So I'm just trying to get trying to figure out the controls, trying to figure out like what my at least that character's moves are right now, like when I should use them and all that. So it seems pretty cool. Like I kind of like it because I like Dragon Ball. I'm definitely gonna download it on the Switch though. Maybe I'll be able to play a little bit more. I was just playing on PC, just on my regular PC, not even on Steam Deck or anything. So I might throw it on there though, the Switch too, see how it runs on that. It should be. I mean, it should run fine. Even on the original Switch, I'm sure it's probably not too bad. But having a good time with it so far. So I'll keep trucking along with it. Having my friend carry me for now, at least until I can figure things out.
It's been a while since we've talked about a MOBA, and usually it's me, not necessarily you. So it's fun to see something that hooks you, or at least pulls you in.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on. Game Logic, anything here? Otherwise, we'll go on to our news of the week. So last week we talked about the DICE Award nominees. This week we have the Game Developer Choice Award nominees. Game of the Year nominees: Blueprints, Clair Obscura, Donkey Kong, Ghost of Yotai, Silksong, and Split Fiction. The Game Developers Choice Awards also includes things like Social Impact, and Roger, which is a $5 game that I have in my backlog that I haven't played yet. Consume Me, Dispatch, which I'm strange to think that Dispatch falls under social impact compared to things like Despelote and the other ones here, where Anne Roger at Kasumi is about kind of social anxiety and eating disorders. Despelote is a story of a child in Latin America at a certain period of time. I'm trying to remember, I think in the 2000s around a soccer match. Best visual art, best technology, best narrative, Innovation Award. Innovation Award nominees are Ball Pit, Baby Steps, Blueprints, Claire Obscura, and Donkey Kong. Best design, best debut, and best audio. Gentlemen, anything here that stood out to you, or any nominations that you want to call attention to?
No, just nice to see Ball Pit, and even though I haven't played it yet, but I know my son's been playing it. Dispatch on there. I know you played a good amount of it too. So I think you beat it, right? You beat Dispatch.
Yeah, I've played through it twice. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was also glad to see Absalom get best visual art, or at least nominated for it. It's a 2D art style similar to Hades is there. Keeper as another from Double Fine in terms of visual art, and then ones that we'd expect like Death Stranding, Ghost of Yotai, and Claire Obscura. Game Logic, anything here that you want to call out?
Well, it's interesting the trend continues that in the game of the year category that it is, pretty well represented by games done outside the traditional kind of publishing pipeline. And even though Claire Obscure and Split Fiction had, backers, in particular Split Fiction with a big backer in terms of Electronic Arts, those are still, non-publisher owned studios that are that are popping into GOTY. In fact, there's only 1/3 of the category is kind of represented by traditional publishing, in studio setups in Donkey Kong Bonanza and Ghost of Yotai.
Yep.
So it's a fairly interesting year. Your comment on social impact, I would say maybe consider that superheroes are minorities too.
Well, I apologize. Yes, thank you for recognizing that population.
I haven't played Dispatch. Aren't there LGBTQ relationships in that game though?
I think so, but not. Your main character is heterosexual, so there's not in that capacity. But I think on the side, yes, there are.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Not you as like the main character of the story, but like going on around you.
Yeah.
So by the same token, it's good to see games coming out of the traditional publisher, studio publisher setup, in the artistic categories and innovation categories. Like best visual art, best technology. I would expect some of those to be kind of like, and that's arguably best technology is a category that seems like people with very 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 big financial backers kind of break out, and seems like it would be very difficult just because the design ethos of a game that is indie or AA probably leans very heavily on not being a technology powerhouse as a title.
Yeah, exactly. I think having Death Stranding, Ghost of Yotai, and best technology makes a whole lot of sense. All right, Game Logic, go ahead and stay on the mic because we'll take the next news story. You've got one from Intel.
Yeah, it's been kind of a weird month for Intel. Coming out of CES, in between Intel and AMD, you could argue that Intel was actually the more consumer facing, of the processor makers. Kind of focused a lot on handhelds, which would make sense also because that's an area that they need to compete in. So this news story over on Kit Guru by Yao Silva. Intel's Arrow Lake refresh reportedly launches this spring. The claims come from Golden Pig Upgrade via Tom's Hardware, who wrote and posted alongside a screenshot of the Geekbench entries we've covered. These entries show the top tier refresh models, specifically the Core Ultra 9 290K Plus for desktops and the Core Ultra 9 290HX Plus for flagship class notebooks. This March April launch window suggests a carefully staged rollout for Intel's 2026 lineup with Panther Lake 8 systems. Panther Lake was one of the chipsets that were shown at CES. Hitting global availability later this month, a spring refresh for Arrow Lake could allow Intel to maintain momentum in its current product stack without overshadowing the debut of its 18A-based mobile architecture. The strategy creates a bridge to Nova Lake, the next major architectural shift currently slated for late 2026. Nova Lake is expected to introduce a new LGA 1954 socket and up to 52 cores, making the 200-plus series the final push for the LG 1851 ecosystem. So yeah, I mean the story behind this, the larger technical ramifications behind this is, Arrow Lake itself kind of debuted with a bit of a thud in late 2024. It didn't really recover much in 2025 with microcode and driver updates, and the whole like Intel gaming optimizations which are like bespoke, tailored, custom optimization implementations for specific titles. And so like that's great, like if you want to bank on those titles being games that you play. It's just kind of a weird thing, in addition to the whole, I mean, kind of these are the weird things you would expect when your CEO gets fired. So but it is a bit of a story that this Arrow Lake refresh is coming out, in particular when you would kind of assume that with the Arrow Lake FUD that they would just drop it and move on. But they're actually trying a redo to come back and take on the 9000 series X3D processors from AMD. I think a lot of the commentary around the chipsets has also been not entirely grounded on total system capability, right? But was very heavily grounded on it's super weird, and I would almost argue it's only because of Unreal Engine 5, right? Because of Unreal Engine 5, and because we have spent 5 years now in this bathtub where we have to ask when a game launches on PC whether or not it is a CPU intensive game. And if it is, then that is an instance specifically where UE5 seems to fall down. So now we're hyper focused on what the CPU does for games. Whereas I would contend before 2020, that was never as big of a deal, right? There would be a very, very small number of games that were CPU intensive that we would take a look at, that we would say, hey, you probably need to have, right? But I mean, for years, the potato PC crowd who, doesn't spend a ton of money buys AMD APUs, right, to meet the bare minimum requirement to play games on PC. And then they pair it with like a powerful GPU. And in general, we typically tend not to worry as much about CPU bottlenecking the GPU. But in this era, and then on top of that, when we have, people speccing PCs at the low end, which is admittedly now like 86% of the market playing on 1080p, right? At the lower resolutions is where the CPU bottleneck becomes a problem. At 4K, at 1440p Ultra, and at 4K is when your GPU becomes the bottleneck. So now when AMD puts out its 9000 series, right, X3D CPUs, there's a big whoop made because those CPUs are better in gaming benchmarks by like 5%, right, over the comparative Intel. Now, admittedly, it's a thing because the Intel CPUs come out and they're more expensive, right? So you ask, why would I buy a more expensive CPU and a more expensive motherboard when I know that motherboard is also, that chip, that socket on that motherboard is also, there's going to be no continuity, right, to the next generation, right? Whereas when I went Ryzen in Gen 1, I didn't replace a motherboard for 3 generations, right? I sat on my same motherboards from Gen 1 Ryzen through 1000, 2000, 3000 series Ryzen and didn't buy new boards until 5000 series Ryzen came about. So I get it. But again, it's created an environment where we make a super big deal about, which CPU scores better in games, when the difference A isn't that much, and B, it's specific games. And I'm like, I don't know if that's like the reason why right, I would buy. There's absolutely a reason to buy Ryzen over Intel. You should buy Ryzen over Intel. I don't know if that's the reason. And then when you look at total compute, in some cases, these Intel, the original Arrow Lake chips actually have better, right, overall total compute when you talk about floating point performance and IPC. So, that all being said, it's a good deal. It's interesting and a good deal that Intel is getting in the fight and not just bypassing this generation. They could have just decided to phone it in, right, and slum it until Nova Lake came along. So it's super interesting that they're, making this charge to come back. We'll see how it goes. I don't expect like the entire fabric of the multiverse to be rendered right by the Cyberpunk refresh. But I mean, hopefully what they do is it's an effort to kind of warm up the fan base, if I can call it that, right, before Nova Lake delivers, so that you regain some sense of confidence in Intel and don't just assume that it's kind of over for them.
Yeah, that seems like the play here is kind of market share, kind of reinforcement, or at least clawing back mind share. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next story. Another week, another set of layoffs. So this week, there were a number of layoffs over at Facebook's Meta, or at Meta itself. So Meta, earlier in the week, these news stories come from Game Developer, but they were picked up lots of different places. So Meta is closing 3 VR gaming studios as part of their Reality Labs layoffs. The Reality Labs includes their gaming division, but also some of their other ones. Supernatural, which was a workout game, almost like Beat Saber, but with a workout. You had a subscription. That is closing down as well, or at least it's not getting any new content, and people have been laid off there. So it's not just in the game area. Again, for the past couple of years, Meta has been bleeding money in terms of financials. But here now we've got 3 game studios: Twisted Pixel, Sanzura, and Armature. Twisted Pixel just released the Deadpool VR that came out this past fall, November. The Deadpool VR came out. Twisted Pixel has been around since Xbox 360 days. Like Explosion Man, Missplosion Man were Twisted Pixel games back in the Xbox Live era of the late 2000s. Armature did the Resident Evil 4 VR, and Sanzura did Asgard's Wrath and Asgard's Wrath 2, which Asgard's Wrath was an early kind of 3D adventure game within Quest, and then Asgard's Wrath 2 was a well-regarded and well-reviewed game there as well. Then later in the week, we got announcements that Camouflage, which is Ryan Payton's studio. Ryan Payton, who was on Metal Gear Solid 4 and started Camouflage. Republique was their initial launch game back in the mid-teens. But last year they did the Batman Arkham game on Meta, and Camouflage is now laid off a large majority of their staff. Reportedly, just a handful of employees left there as well. I think, I mean, we've seen plenty of layoffs in lots of different vectors of the gaming industry. So in some ways, this isn't a surprise, but it does feel like it really, the news headlines of gutting Meta's game division definitely feels apropos. Like, these are significant studios that they invested in, and how much new content is coming out within the Quest game space. I don't really know. Last year, 2020, or 2 years ago, 2024, it also closed Ready at Dawn, which Ready at Dawn was a third-party studio that had done God of War spin-offs and other things, and was picked up by Meta. Ready at Dawn, I think, might have even been Order 1864 or whatever that PlayStation 4 game was. Tao, you're a Meta user, you're a Quest user. Any thoughts here on these studios or the direction moving forward?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play either Batman or the Deadpool yet. I have Asgard's Wrath, actually. I have both of them, but once again, haven't had a chance to play either of those. Actually got Asgard's Wrath 2 when I bought the Quest 3 that came with it, so it's kind of a bundle. But yeah, I was actually talking with my friend about this last night. He told me about it. I hadn't even seen the story about this. I did see earlier, well, I don't know how earlier in the week, but I guess their Quest for Business, it's like a subscription service for like businesses and educational institutions that's being shuttered too. So this coming year, I think the program itself is like totally done by the 2030, I believe. But they're not selling it anymore. I believe as of next year or the end of this year. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that they're doing. They're obviously like a lot of these companies are shifting over to AI and their wearables. I think you mentioned that. So it stinks. But also, and we've talked about this through the last few years, and Game Logic obviously was jumped into the VR a few years ago, and I got into it later. It's just like there's no VR just never kind of took off really. I mean, as much as the Quest was doing good, even with Meta, even before that, it just never. I don't think it ever had the kind of mainstream success they wanted it to. Maybe with the wearables, they can kind of maybe ease people into a little bit better, because that's I guess the thing that people want. I suppose, I don't know. That's what they think at least. But it just kind of stinks that obviously once again these studios are getting closed down, and supposedly they're still all in for the Quest itself though as a platform. So they're still going to be making them. I know there's rumor, because these are just rumors, but they're still working on the next gen Quest, the Quest 4, whatever they call it. I'm assuming probably Quest 4. So we'll see what happens, if it's just going to be just hardware they're throwing out there, and they'll leave it to all the other third party developers or whatnot to get games for it.
Game Logic, any thoughts here on the direction of Meta and the gaming division?
A ton. I'm trying to sort them out in my head in some type of logical order. I mean, so back to Tao's comment about about VR. And look, I have tons of fun playing VR. We, our former co-host and founder Greylock and I did a VR podcast for maybe a year or so. Because we were very bullish on VR, and he and I both owned multiple VR headsets. I personally have tons of fun playing VR, just like I have tons of fun playing games that a lot of other people are lukewarm on. But I told people, and I'm not saying this like Tao and I were hands clasped right to having fun in VR, but I told people from a business perspective, I've said for many years, I'm like the way the media is making a big deal out of VR, saying it's like the future of gaming. I'm like, this is the gaming media's 3D TV moment, just like the entertainment industry tried to push 3D TVs and make it like a thing. And I'm like, you guys aren't speaking about the human limitations. Like nobody wants to sit there and watch a 2-hour movie with 3D glasses on their face. 3D TVs will be a thing when you have the technology that surmounts needing glasses, right, to watch it. But by then they had soured people. By the time they got around to that, they soured people so much on it that still nobody wanted. Like I love VR. We need to understand, and this is a topic that hinges on the gaming topic in general itself. This whole thing about like there's 3 billion latent gamers out there behind screens that if you just present video games to them on a microwave or their refrigerator or their washer and dryer LCD, they'll suddenly magically develop the X gene, become mutants, subject themselves to the Terrigen Mist, become Inhumans, and gain superpowers and start playing video games. And like, people need to swaths of the human race, percentages of the human race, cannot in their mind calculate relative motion. This is why you have car accidents. This is why you have people who don't understand when they see a moving vehicle off at an angle and another moving vehicle off at are visualizing themselves. They don't understand that those two things are going to collide. They don't understand CPA. They can't calculate it in their brain. They can't calculate it through their eye. You have people who have like motion control problems and vertigo, and like cannot, like physically can't do certain things. So you have a huge part of the human race that cannot play VR because their brains cannot conceptualize and deal with the altered physics and presentation that presents to their brain. Like just like when you've seen in your life these moments and times where you see something like horrific or something that you never expected to see in real life, like there's a moment in time where your brain freezes, right? Because it can't comprehend what it is you're seeing. You know, I hate to bring things up, but if you've ever seen a dead body, or if you've ever seen like some type of animal, right, that you haven't, and you're like, what is, my God, like, what is that? What am I looking at? Right? There's a split second, a number of microseconds where your brain cannot process what it's seeing, and it's trying to like draw relations, right, in this network of synapses in your head that like, so my point is that like you're only going to get so much saturation of VR, right? It's just that is a natural sociological, anthropological fact. And so people being bullish on VR that it's going to like blow up, I'm like, it has a ceiling and it has a limitation. That all being said, then we have Facebook, Meta, right? We have the whole thing about when Facebook got into, like, bought Oculus in the first place, how weird all of us gamers thought that was, right? And then the attempt to then push it right over the edge to become part of this whole build out of the metaverse, and like Zuckerberg and his weird thing of like, you know, 3D VR avatars in a world like where you're going to be sitting at a meeting talk, like the whole thing has been like a weird, like, I don't know, like K-drama that we've seen like unfolding on the screen. Again, this thing we can't comprehend. So the whole thing is weird. So it's like, I'm with Tao. It's like, it's unfortunate that then in the acquisition move. So here we are back to acquisitions and how acquisitions are bad and how acquisitions never are good. Like at some point, like they're always harmful, right? In some way, particularly when we talk about the 6 members of the $1 trillion club, and the fact that none of them have built anything more than like 2 products, and everything else they have acquired, like literally. So, you know, so now here we are. The one good thing that an interesting market dynamic that Facebook did do is they proved the thing that, quite frankly, I hate, because as a PC power enthusiast, you know, and Greylock falls in this thing too. We always wanted the big metal like VR headsets tethered to a cable that allowed us to get all the power out of our GPUs. And what Meta proved was, hey, no, what the market wants is they want other untethered. They're not concerned about power. They're concerned about portability, and they're concerned about comfort. And that's why like the Meta Quest is the most prevalent headset on the market, and why I'm afraid the Steam Frame is coming out and isn't going to have a tether and isn't going to be able to render like all the maximum power it could out of that GPU. But you know, yeah. So it's, at the end of the day, it's unfortunate that, as Tal said, the developers are being laid off. But that's my whole 360 kind of holistic view of like the whole mess that VR is.
Yeah, I think that's a good analysis of the VR as a market share space, as a you know, sub industry of the video game industry, which even at the larger video game industry scale, we've seen, whether it's the Steam, you know, end of the year summary where only 13% of people are playing new games, or 20% of people are playing new games, or there's Circana data that shows the top 5 games on console platforms are all games that have been released before, right? It's Roblox, Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, Minecraft, and Fortnite. Right? If you're, regardless of the space you're developing in, it's difficult to be a new developer. It's difficult to put out a new property. And then, as you said, Game Logic, being in a subset of a subset in VR makes those market shares even smaller and smaller, and it's hard to find success there.
And VR has always had a marketability problem. Again, it's like, I say all these things with them. I say all these things as like they're unfortunate, right? Like I love playing in VR. I wish everybody could love playing in VR. But it also had a marketability problem where, you know, for a few years now, they've done. There's actually a VR component of the Summer Game Fest week, and again, that's a thing that like 92% of most gamers don't even know is going on. But I'm like, you can only present the premise of VR so well, right, on a flat screen. And so you're doing a VR showcase, presenting it to people on YouTube, and even regular traditional flat screen games, have a limitation on how well they present on YouTube, right? Because people are looking at compressed graphics, they're looking at them at the moment in time. Most people can walk away, most gamers walk away with a bad impression of even a regular flat screen game because they were watching the live stream of it, where they weren't getting them, the greatest graphical fidelity. But if you go back, right, and watch it after the thing is posted and up-resed, right, with YouTube's background algorithm, it's actually a better presentation. But by then, most gamers have already formulated their opinion. So I don't know. It's VR. So VR has the same problem that traditional 2D games have in presenting themselves at a summer showcase over YouTube, and then you double, right, how tough it is for a VR game to come across as a good premise.
Tao, any final thoughts here?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I didn't realize now it's been just about 12 years, almost 12 years now since the Quest, that Facebook had bought Oculus. I thought it was a lot shorter than that. So, because I was gonna mention that, and I guess this is still probably part of it, but when the whole pandemic started, I think that's when they started leaning into hey, we're gonna do the metaverse, and you don't have to worry about going out and gaming with people and all this. And I think Meta was banking on VR to be that kind of like springboard for all that, and it just didn't. Like, this is not, we don't have the technology for, like, it's Ready Player One, to do it like that. Like, it's just not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think, as far as I can see. Now I see some of the headsets coming down the pipeline. Yeah, they're getting smaller, but they're still pretty bulky, like the Quest 3 was a good bit smaller than the Quest 2. I'm looking at it right now, but still, it's just this giant thing on your head. Until we can get it, like sunglass size, or maybe a little bit bigger than that. I don't think it's ever going to really hit that kind of the big mainstream success that everybody wants it to be. But we'll see. As technology advances.
All right, Game Logic, let's move on to the next story here. You've got one coming from Dual Shockers around Fallout 3 and New Vegas.
Yeah, and I'll try to make these last two news stories pretty quick. Why Fallout 3 and New Vegas are suddenly acting like unreleased games on Steam by Scott Baird. Eric. The nearly 30-year-old Fallout franchise has seen a resurgence of popularity in recent years and months, with more anticipated reveals potentially coming soon. The Fallout series as a whole has gained newfound global popularity thanks to the critically acclaimed Amazon Prime Fallout show, which debuted in 2024 and is continuing to find success with its currently ongoing second season. A noted Xbox leaker is claiming that Fallout 5 is greenlit with a new team at the helm, as Bethesda is busy with Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6. I don't really care about all that. New occurrences on the scene connected to Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas may suggest the upcoming debut of the much anticipated Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas remastered. A few days ago, several Reddit users noted a strange occurrence when trying to leave reviews for both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas on Steam. When trying to post the review, a message would pop up saying, "You must wait until this product has been released before writing a review for it." So what that sounds like to me on the back end of Steam and the publishing arm is that the URL where they are planning to post, if they're planning to post Fallout 3 Remastered and Fallout New Vegas, will be a swap. And so you won't still be able to buy those new titles, and the new games will wind up being posted to the URL. And that's why you're getting the response that something new is coming on top of like the URL that you're trying to hit to post reviews for the currently released games. So that'll be pretty neat. I would be interested in a New Vegas remaster. In particular, probably a Fallout 3 too. I've played bits of both of those games over the last couple of years, sometimes via Game Pass. In some cases, I just picked up a copy. Fallout 3, I feel, is still a very competent looking game graphically. Maybe not New Vegas. Seems maybe quite so much, but but I think both of them are worthy of a graphical upgrade and will play well. I think the thirst for remastered Fallout games is actually greater than um, Skyrim games. I saw a headline earlier today. I didn't have a chance to dig into it that said that the players on average only played the Oblivion remaster for about 15 hours before they dropped off. But that's not hugely strange to me, considering a ton of the data coming from that would be people who played it on Game Pass. We know that Game Pass, in aggregate, skews the data so that the engagement looks, so that the engagement is minimized because it's tons of data of people who that game may not even be in their wheelhouse, right? But they were playing it like just because. So yeah, it'll be interesting if these games hit. It's interesting that Steam is spitting those things out here in the week before the Xbox Showcase. So, although the Xbox Showcase said it's only going to provide coverage of one additional game beyond the 3 that we already know, maybe these 2 will just be a shadow drop or something. I don't know. So it's interesting. It'll be cool if they hit at a time, in a soft spot in the year where people have time, to play them before things really get going. And I mean, we got Resident Evil Requiem coming out right at the end of January. So, or February, I'm sorry.
But I think you're absolutely right. Like the hunger for it is now's a great time. Or while the zeitgeist of the show is still there, it certainly is a good time for the remasters. And there's a lot of good game there that a little graphical pass would make it pretty accessible to a lot of people. All right, Game Logic, take us with the final one. So this is back in the beginning of January. Rockstar and 2K did a Red Dead Redemption new gen upgrade. It was free to people who owned it. It was on PlayStation Plus Premium. I have it on Switch, and it was a free upgrade. And then when I looked to get it on Xbox, because I own the digital copy of Red Dead, it wasn't there. It asked me to buy it. And so you've got a story that ties into that.
Yeah, and I mean, essentially that is the story that I guess some people who hit that blocker on Xbox still went ahead and paid for it. And so then, Xbox received tons of complaints that, hey, I had to pay for this upgrade, which is supposed to be free. So I'll quote from the article. It's been nearly 2 months since all of the issues with Red Dead Redemption's upgrade path on Xbox, but it seems like it's finally been resolved for some players. As pointed out by Rockstar Intel, Redditor Saucy Chief recently shared a post on the Xbox subreddit that shows a message they received from Xbox support. The message says, Red Dead Redemption was intended to be free for those who had previously purchased a digital copy of Red Dead Redemption before confirming that a refund for the upgrade has now been issued. This seems to Okay, so I mean that's the long and short of it. The main reason I put this in the rundown was because I wanted people to be informed that if you were one of the people who paid for the Red Dead Redemption upgrade on Xbox, it sounds like you are getting a refund. So that refund was supposed to be free. I am one who, and I've gone back and played Red Dead Redemption, and I'm about to, and I've gone back and started replays of Red Dead Redemption 2, and I'm planning on going back and picking that back up. I am one who, I'm very clear what the updates were for Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC, because like the tail of the tape was that the thing was capped at 60 frames per second, and then we got they finally implemented DLSS, and then it's been off to the races since then, right, with constantly improving performance for Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC. I get confused as heck with what the flip is going on with these titles on console. Like, I don't get it. And I'm like, fine, like, look, I'll just play it, right? And I don't really care about what upgrades there are, but I've seen these things and I kind of look at them with a side eye. I'm like, this got upgraded on Xbox, this got upgraded on PS5, this is available. I mean, and I think I bought the Red Dead Redemption OG upgrade on PS5, because I wanted it available on the PlayStation platform. But it just gets muddy and Byzantine, and I'm like, I flip flop back and forth between A, I don't care, and B, like, I wish you guys would just like release a thing and put a price tag on it and be done with it. But I guess it was problematic because the thing that they made people pay for on PlayStation 5 was like already the version that was on Xbox. So I just whatever. But look,
They
point
look
is,
good.
if you
I mean,
paid for this thing, then you're getting a refund. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, right. If you've yeah, exactly, that's the key here. But they, having played it pre-patch and post-patch on Switch, it definitely looks a whole lot and runs a whole lot better on Switch 2. You're running some HDR. The models look a whole lot better. Um, Running it on, I've played both the Switch and the PlayStation 5 versions back in January or back in December. You can tell the models are older, but the lighting looks really good. The frame rates are really solid. Like, it's still the same game design. I'm pretty sure we talked about this back in December when I played it. Right? It's still the same game design. You're still going through, but in terms of visual passes and performance and stability, these patches definitely do make a difference. All right, let's round the corner into our final segment in terms of other games that we've been playing. Tom, I'm going to start with you so that you can turn your attention to the final 5 minutes of the Bears game as they're trying to score and tie it up. You are in week 3 of talking about Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, so that's probably the main game I've been playing most of this past week. I've gone back to a couple other of my kind of like standards, like Rocket League and Fortnite and Battlefield, but I played a lot of Cyberpunk 2077. I finally got to Johnny Silverhand and kind of opened up the whole city. Now I can pretty much go everywhere within the world there, and I'm just kind of flipping back and forth between going through. Doing some campaign missions and then just doing like side missions and just kind of going back and forth and doing that. I do see a lot of GTA in this game once that city opens up, like just the random stuff that'll happen, and you can even just like seeing like NPCs walking around doing stuff, and you could just follow one, and they'll have like a little story kind of behind what they're doing, and you can actually do like your little scan and see what the person if they're wanted and stuff like that. So it's kind of fun, just kind of do that kind of goofy stuff every once in a while, but mostly just kind of bouncing back and forth between kind of doing the campaign and the side quests. I've got a couple of weapons now, though. The one is a sniper. I think that was from a side mission that I had obtained, and that thing is like super powerful. Like it does almost like an explosive shot, not every time, but almost every once in a while, like every other 2 or 3 like shots, it'll be explosive. So I think it's like pretty powerful. I can pretty much take out anybody like when I'm going against them, even like the mini bosses and stuff like that. But yeah, so I just got to the part with Pan Am. I just finished her kind of for I'm assuming first story. I don't know if you do more stuff with her later on. So I finished with stuff with her kind of story, her initial story. So that was pretty cool. It was kind of different. Just kind of doing the missions there. But yeah, I'm still having just a ton of fun. Like I'm just engrossed in this kind of world now. Just going around and just having fun in the world.
Nice, great. Are you playing it mainly handheld? Is that why you're chipping away at it, or are you docking and playing?
Yeah, mainly handheld. I actually did finally put it on. Actually, I put my Switch 2 dock up on my TV now. I had it here on my PC before, my PC monitor, and it looks really good on my 4K TV that I'm using now. I thought it might look a little, kind of jaggy or maybe kind of, pixelated, but man, it looks like super clear, and I think even a little bit better than when it's on handheld. So, which is kind of different and weird because
you're going to get HDR, not in handheld. So
yeah, so yeah, it looks really nice. So I was really surprised. So, but yeah, had a lot of fun with that.
Nice. All right, Game Logic, you've got a swath of games that you've been picking away at, coming back to. It looks like Destiny: The Final Shape is your first up.
Well, it's not quite the final shape. I am continuing my run through of all the legacy content in Destiny 2. I just finished Shadowkeep and have moved on to Beyond Light. So that's what I wound up playing.
You played through those for the second time, or
I played Shadowkeep as like I played through it in some type of broken continuity. I don't even remember. It's not one that I played like at the moment.
The stasis one or the freeze one. I remember this.
This is Beyond Light with stasis,
Yep.
and this is like revealing the truth of like who the Fallen really are. So Shadowkeep was one that I did not play like in real time, like when it released. Like Beyond Light, I did. I didn't play Forsaken in real time either. Like I played part of it and then like went back to finish it. But Beyond Light is one that I played fully through the first time. So yeah, I'm going back through it again with my new Warlock.
Still plays well. Still is Destiny.
It does, yeah. Playing at 4K here. I think I'm on I'm on my RTX 5080 rig. Getting 144 frames per second, so it's fine. I mean, I think the only thing that really to report out on it is a little bit of chicanery and shenanigans associated with like trying to get into the content. That's the realization I made this time, and I think this problem has been persisting for a very long time with Destiny 2, is that it's very much like Warframe now. And so Warframe is one where like all the content's there, and Warframe's been going on since I think like 2009 or 10. And the problem with Warframe is, and I love playing Warframe, right? But the problem with Warframe is you always get to a point, like you can play for 8 hours, 16 hours, but you then always get to a point where trying to figure out where the Pebblestone, right, like garden path is to get to a piece of content is buried in some kind of Minotaur's maze of like understanding where the heck you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do and what like a prereq is. And I think Destiny is like that, even worse. Like Warframe, there's plenty of guides out there, right, to help you figure that out. But Destiny 2 just has tons of, I would almost call them bugs, where like you want to get into a piece of content. Sometimes there's multiple ways to get into content, but the entrance point isn't the same. So like if you want to play the Beyond Light campaign and you own it, there's a way that you have to go about getting into it. If you go
how does that work now with the portal? Like after the final shape, this Edge of Fate this year, they kind of revised the whole way that you get into content. So
if you go to the portal and you go to like the history timeline, right, and you just kind of side load into Beyond Light, it doesn't start you at the beginning. And I don't know how far it plays through. It starts you already going inside one of the complexes on Europa. You bypass this whole meeting with Varix, and you're assaulting the complex where you go in, and now I'm forgetting her name that starts with an E, but like the queen who is trying to who is becoming the Dark Kel. You're invading that complex. Where she's kind of where she's kind of rallying the troops and promising to share stasis with all of them. Like that's the moment in time when you invade. So like you don't go through the whole approach path into that area of Europa. You don't fight your way through all the troops. You don't fight your way across the bridge to get into the complex. So it's fine that it dumps you in there, but I'm like, is this because like when they did that with Forsaken, you didn't play through the entirety of Forsaken, right? You played through like a chapter, and then it said, and then it took you to the cutscene of how Forsaken ends, so you couldn't actually play through all the content. So Beyond Light, I own Beyond Light, and I should be able to play through all of the content, but the way to get in that is you go to Europa, you select the mission icon on the screen, and then hit launch, right? And then it gives you like the whole starting cutscene at the beginning of that. You see, I forget what her first name is, but you see Bray the Exo, who is like from the future, right, and the descendant of
Clovis Bray. Is that right?
Yeah. So, and so, like, I don't mind like one of those entry points, but it bothers me that there's both, and it bothers me that one is misleading. One is how you can go play a little piece of Beyond Light if you don't own it, right? So you can at least kind of see what the story presented. there's a different way to actually get fully into the campaign. So, but so that to me is a problem, and it, like I said, is very akin to kind of the Warframe problem. But it is what it is.
So let's stay on the space theme, and another game with a whole lot of content and navigation is Elite Dangerous.
Yeah, so I played a bit of Elite Dangerous earlier today, and so I've put about 20 hours into it now. There's some broken continuity there. I had a copy on Steam. I eventually lost access to that copy on Steam, and so I bought another copy through Epic. So I've put about 20 hours into it. I've kind of broken. So I went in with like the original entry ship, and then I bought like a hauler, and so I took on some jobs just kind of hauling stuff from space sector to space sector or whatever, and some transport oriented missions, freighter oriented missions. But then last time I bought a new ship. I bought a Viper. I think it's called a Viper 3. And so now I'm embarking on kind of the second part of my career that is for me to start taking on bounties. So having a good time with it. Got a little more proficient at the full sector scan, which is just a pain. What's interesting is because I play on different machines, you have this thing where sometimes like you've mapped controls to an axis, but you're on a different controller. So even though it says like you're mapped to that axis, the game doesn't recognize it right until you actually go in and like remap it. So there's some little quirks to it like that. But by and large, I'm having a pretty good time. So I did another Black Ops kind of smuggling mission today. I should say salvage mission. And so, like I said, had to go through the whole full sector scan piece, and like those missions work in like a hyper specific way, and you have to kind of understand it and dig through it and Google around, kind of get a shot of my new ship here in a good light. Yes, probably that's the best one. So, like I said, I bought a Viper 3 with in-game currency, so I'd finally built up enough money to go in and buy more of a heavy fighter class ship. And then I did have to go do some, and then I chose to go do some microtransactions and bought some arcs to get some of the cosmetics. It's kind of a weird setup in Elite Dangerous, like ships and gear and stuff you can buy with in-game currency, but then like some of the cosmetics and stuff to then dress it up is what you buy with like the other goofy currency that is for purchase right on their open marketplace. And I guess you do kind of earn that currency too at a like grotesquely slow rate, unless you're somebody who plays like Elite Dangerous like all the time, right? Which I'm not doing. So but yeah, having a good time in that, figuring out my way across the galaxy, and getting some stick time, because of course that's a game that I can pull out a full flight control system and configure that to my PC and use it.
Nice. Well, let's stay on the flight aspect of space and go on to your next game.
Yeah, so there's definitely been a heavy sci-fi theme going on in the gaming den here for me. So this is me over on Starfield, which again, I'm having fun in, but I continue to lament the notion that this game doesn't have flight control and things like that, or can't use a HOTAS and things like that. But anyway, I'm finding fun for the game within the game's limitations. As I mentioned last week, this is me playing kind of the straight stick campaign and trying to kind of stick to what they tell me to do. Encumbrance continues to be a pain in the butt. It's pretty neat here. One of the pieces of gear that I that I found, that I scavenged, is like a sniper rifle with a scope. So now I finally have a means of, like, when I'm, a far distance away, on an outpost, I can actually pull that thing out and see what the heck, there is, like, on the other side of the compound or whatever. So this is me doing one of my favorite things to do in Starfield, which is an outpost takedown. We all know how much Game Logic loves those. So,
So true. Far Cry says hello.
and and at this point I have, like, the booster pack, and Sarah is actually a fairly competent combatant, and she will actually kind of, hold things down on multiple occasions. It's kind of regretful that this game doesn't have the ability to, like, give orders, right, to AI companions, kind of like you can in Rainbow Six, because very many times, as you see me here, I love the fact that you know she's doing a frontal assault, and that allows me to, like, slip around and outflank the enemy, and pull some shenanigans there. Yeah, that was a weird moment where, like, I killed that guy, and then, like, the game kind of froze briefly. I was like, if the game crashes at this point after I took this thing out, I'm gonna be really angry. Um, but yeah, but I just held my breath and waited a few seconds, and it pulled through. So yeah, this was a pretty fun exchange going through. A little bit of a super weird thing, and a little bit of frustrating in the gameplay loop. I go around this base, and I'm, like, scavenging ammo, like every 10 seconds. It seems like I'm coming across a new ammo thing, and then somehow, like, half my weapons had no ammo available, and I'm like, what in the heck is going on? So I don't know what that was about, but I wound up, when I went to Jemison next time around, I just bought crap tons of new ammo, which is, it's kind of like that Borderlands moment, right, where you spend so much time just scavenging ammo, and you just suck it up and lament it when you have one of your 3 weapons that runs out of ammo, and then you get to a point where you've got enough credits where, like, every time you see a vending machine,
Right. You're
you
just
go on
buying
top
it
of,
because
yeah,
you don't want it. Yep.
yeah. I do. One interesting thing is I have modified one. One of the problems is I have modified one weapon. So I don't know if it's the weapon itself or the mod that I put on, but it uses this, like, 43 Magnum ammo, which is, seems to be rarely available. So that, like, even in Jemison, I couldn't find any place to, like, buy that. So yeah, this is the scoped weapon here, which has become one of my favorites. But yeah, just going around the galaxy, having a fun time, going through the main campaign, not going through off on all the side missions. Numerous times I've passed people who are like, "Hey, psst, I need to talk to you." Which the first playthrough I was like, "Okay, yeah, what side mission do you have for me?" But this time I'm like, "Nope, yeah, not doing that." So
I like how earlier in the clip when you're shooting those guys at the beginning of this, I guess, mission or whatever you're doing, you have all these guns and stuff, and you just pull out your axe and take out the last 2 guys with just axe.
Yeah, so that is part of kind of like my combat protocol, right now. So I have 2 of these weapons now, the double barrel shotguns, but they only hold 2 rounds. So I would usually hit a guy with 2 rounds, and if it's not like within the short range kind of CQB of that battle area, if there's not just a ton of people around, I'll take him out with my axe. And if I am able to get the drop, actually that first guy that I dropped, I should have hit him with the axe right in the first place instead of wasting ammo on it. But yeah, I keep my highest damage hand-to-hand weapon armed in the number 1 quick slot spot, so I can quickly swap to it if I'm in close range on a person, or if I am sneaking up on them and get the drop on them.
They fixed the maps, right? Eventually, because was it like when you're in the city or something, like it was just like a kind of overview of the city. You couldn't really zoom in or anything like that, or like details of it.
I think the way it was at launch is you didn't have a mini map in the city, but you do now. So
nice.
Yeah, that was an addition. I remember that. Yep. All right, Game Logic. As you pull up your final game, staying in the space theme, I'm going to commend Tao on his stoic nature of not reacting to the Bears tying the game and sending it into overtime. So,
got to keep it in control right now.
All right, your final game is one that speaking of VR, this is a game that I played on PlayStation VR back on the PlayStation 4, which was great. This is Star Wars Squadrons. And did you play it in VR as well?
So I didn't mention this over the holiday break. I think I actually had it like on a side note, and I wound up not mentioning it when we got back together. So over the holidays, I did roll credits on Star Wars Squadrons, the single player campaign, and actually Doom: The Dark Ages. But yes, this is Star Wars Squadrons is a game that I completed the single player campaign, which isn't long. It's like 14 hours. In regular, right, in traditional mode. And when I went to hook up my Oculus Rift S this time, I said, I have many games that are traditional games that have a VR mode that I haven't really checked out. And so decided I wanted to do that with Star Wars Squadrons. It was a good experience. It was not a great experience. There was kind of some weirdness. One of the things I don't like is when the game sets auto for graphics mode. When I go in and look at that, it actually like seems to set everything to low for some reason, and it does that whether you're playing in traditional mode or VR mode. So I had to fix that. So I groomed all of my like traditional like settings and stuff before I played it, and then when I put the VR headset on, I had done that earlier in the day. When I put the VR headset on, I was like, this thing is doing it all over again. Like, because when I went into it, I was like, this looks like crap. It does not look good. And so I went in and tweaked the settings. It also feels like there's like some weird like color stuff going on, and so it has separate settings for brightness and then like maximum HDR brightness, and I don't know exactly how those two things are interacting. So initially I got some weird like red hues around the screen, and right now it just seems like I'm not able to get like I've kind of fixed that, but it seems like I'm not able to get a really good color quality overall that looks kind of like the natural state that I would expect it to be. So it's it's always a problem, going back to like the problems with VR getting traction. And this isn't the first game that I played by any means it's like VR, but then you have like something other than the Rift controllers that you're using to control the game, right? I've got my Logitech X52 HOTAS system out controlling it, and I have the same problem with games, and it's like there's a ton of controls, right, in a space sim, right, that you've got mapped to all types of weird buttons. And then on top of that, you still have to like reach for the keyboard sometimes. And so then in VR, you get some wonkiness too with some of the UI screens where it doesn't respond to stuff. So periodically I have to reach the keyboard, and I have to do this whole thing of like I lift up and like slightly pull off the VR headset, and I'm like looking at underneath the cowl like with one eye, to see the keyboard. So like it's always that thing is always kind of prevalent with VR games. But that all being said, right, there's something to be said about you're zooming around in an X-wing. So the in-cockpit presentation is really nice because you've got the VR headset on, and everything was kind of a HUD before, right? And you couldn't see like your arms and legs inside the cockpit. So you put the VR headset on, you can see that you really don't have a HUD because all of those things that were on the HUD, they're now on like faces of like cockpit panels. And so that's neat, but it's also there's a little dissonance there because you got used to the way everything was situated on the HUD, and everything was situated on the HUD in the same place for different types of spacecraft. Once you put the VR headset on, that's not the same case. Stuff is not on the same panels in a TIE fighter than it is in an X-Wing, or even across like similar, Rebel craft, and Imperial craft. So a little bit of that adjustment to go through. But there is something, nice to be said about now here you are in the Star Wars universe, right? You're in an X-Wing. You hit the boost. You can look out the window and see the S-foils close, and you skim along the underside of a Star Destroyer, right? So and you can look up at the underbelly and you can see it, right? There's something neat to that, and it's a little both intuitive but also a little disjointing. When you when you shift kind of how you are targeting and looking for an enemy craft, when you hit the cycle to next target key, there's a blip that comes up on the screen, and then you start actually looking for it, like out of the cockpit, right, and turning the ship. So there's some neatness to that. You get to a point where you're not looking at the controls anymore like you did like when you weren't in VR, where you are, there's an intuitive feel, right, to where, kind of like if you're a motorcycle rider, right, and you're accustomed to, what they teach you, which is like the bike is going to go where you look, right, and that's true like when you're in the spacecraft too. So there's some neatness to that. I'm having a fun time with it. I don't know that I'm committed to doing the entirety of the campaign over again in VR.
But even just experiencing it in VR is a nice feature. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a good time with it. Yep.
Cool. All right, gentlemen, that brings us to the end. Go ahead.
Have you tried Elite Dangerous in VR?
I have not yet. I also haven't put the VR headset on yet for No Man's Sky. But
yeah, that's pretty good too. I've tried that. Yeah,
I think maybe I did
play No Man's Sky in VR as well.
Yeah, I think maybe I have tried Elite Dangerous in VR like one time before, but not like in my current like continuity or run.
Yes.
All right. Well, plenty of stuff to talk about. That brings us to the end of our show. Coming up this week, we got a couple of games, new releases. One of the ones that I'm looking forward to is Metrovania Mio, Memories of Orbit. It's coming out, releasing day one on Game Pass, but also on PlayStation, Switch, and PC. We've got the Dynasty Warrior Origins and Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade ports coming to Switch this week as well. There's a free demo out there for FF7 Remake on Switch 2 if you want to give that a try. I've got it downloaded, but I haven't had a chance to play around with it at all. Anything this week, gentlemen, that's sticking out to you, looking forward to?
Your in the moment audio editing of yourself is very, very interesting, because this is a weird thing that's going on in gaming media as well, and I don't understand why. That Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is actually coming out to the Xbox as well.
Yes, that is true. Yep.
So the reason I say it's funny is because usually the way I put this list together is I go to like two random sources, right? So that the second source picks up hopefully any games that the first source didn't. And then sometimes I, do like a third pass, right? And it's super weird that the first two times, the way this is being reported in most places is that Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is just coming to Switch 2.
Yeah, it's on Xbox. I think there's a demo for it as well. And then there's also some additions, even if you already have it on PC or on PlayStation, that there's some additional, I think there's a couple extra modes or some modifiers that you can add in with this release as well. But I think it's probably more of the gaming space marketplace around Xbox than it is anything else.
Well, yes, I was not for a moment suggesting that you had done it deliberately, but that's the thing that was super interesting to me, was that in my mind, I think it has been done deliberately in some places, but then I also felt like I felt like it was like maybe 60% deliberate, 40% subconscious for like the rest of the world. But so you kind of just corroborated for me that there's a subconscious thing going on, that in people's minds, the big deal is about that. It's about Final Fantasy VII coming to Switch 2.
The portability of it. Yeah, that's true. That's
well, true. And because of a connotation of Square Enix that is more tightly coupled to a Nintendo platform than Xbox.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, although at the same time, I mean, it's Mio is day one on Game Pass, so I've been thinking about Game Pass in that space. I think it also is the fact that the Final Fantasy games have come later to Xbox. Final Fantasy 16 came later. It's not a surprise there as well. But yes, so those seem to be the top releases for the coming week. Gentlemen, any other final closing thoughts before we round out the show?
Not really looking forward to any of these games, but I am looking forward to the Xbox Direct just to see the deep dives into the games that they've announced, and obviously the secret game, but mostly on Fable. Just hopefully we get some like in-depth, like longer gameplay. Like I think we've seen very little snippets maybe of it on the past. Actually, really just probably the last time they've showed it. So excited to see that.
Yeah, well,
Is that
that's
the
a great stinger for next week because I'm sure that'll be a big topic of our discussion. Game Logic, what were you going to say?
What day of the week is that next week? Is it the 20th or the 20th?
It's the 22nd, I believe. So, which is Thursday? Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, very cool.
yeah, so come back next week because we'll be talking about it then. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. Henry Heck, Real Nate. Who else do we have here? We've got Solotech, Ghostface Killer. Glad to have you all here. Appreciate the commentary, the conversation that you all have. It is always glad to have you join us and to be part of your community. So thank you. So for myself, DBQ Hams and Game Logic and Towmaster99, this has been episode 420 of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. We'll be back next week at 8 o'clock Eastern on a Sunday evening, 7 o'clock Central. And Tao's going to finish watching this Bears game as he's pointing it out here. So until next week, play the games you love. Love those you play with. Be kind to yourself. Good night, everybody.